Bird with head stuck in chair. You won't believe what happened next. Imagine a small, helpless creature struggling and trapped, its wings fluttering in panic, unable to escape. A tiny bird, disoriented by the bright light from a glass door, crashes into a table leg and finds itself stuck, unable to move. You could hear its cries for help echoing in the air, each moment more desperate than the last. But what happens next will surprise you and leave you believing that sometimes kindness can create miracles. What would you do if you found a creature in need? Would you step in to save it? Stay with me to see how a simple act of compassion led to an extraordinary bond between a man and a bird. It was an ordinary day for the young man. He was relaxing in his living room, enjoying the peace of his home, when suddenly a strange noise broke the silence. A loud thud echoed through the house, followed by frantic flapping. The young man stood up, puzzled, unsure of what was happening. As he approached the source of the sound, he was stunned by the sight before him. A bird, clearly disoriented, had flown into the glass door, its wings flapping in confusion, trying to find an escape route. The light from the window had blinded it, and in its panic, the bird had crashed into the leg of a nearby table. It got stuck between two iron bars, its body trembling as it struggled to free itself. Its small chest rose and fell rapidly, the bird's every movement filled with fear. The young man could see the panic in the bird's eyes, its desperate attempts to escape only worsening its condition. The poor animal had gotten itself caught in a narrow gap, and no matter how hard it flapped its wings, it couldn't escape the iron grip of its own panic. The young man's heart ached as he watched the little bird struggle. He had no idea how long he had been trapped or how much longer it could endure the strain. The bird's tiny body was caught in such a painful position, and it was clear that every moment it spent struggling only caused it more harm. What would you do in that moment? Many might have hesitated, unsure of how to handle a wild animal in distress. But the young man didn't think twice. His instincts kicked in, and he knew he couldn't just stand there and watch the bird suffer. He had to act. He gently moved closer to the bird, careful not to startle it further. The small creature was so fragile, its eyes wide with fear, but the young man's calm presence seemed to soothe it. He extended his hand, making sure not to make any sudden movements, and gently reached out to lift the bird from the gap between the iron bars. The bird's body was limp, exhausted from its frantic attempts to escape. The young man could feel the animal's tiny body trembling as he carefully cradled it in his hands. The bird's neck was scratched, and its feathers were matted with sweat and dirt. The bird was weak, but the young man's touch was gentle. His heart swelled with empathy for the creature. He knew the bird had been through so much already, and he wasn't going to let it suffer any longer. He slowly carried the bird inside, knowing he had to make it comfortable. The bird's wings were still stiff from the struggle, but it had stopped flapping. The young man prepared a small box with a warm towel and placed the bird inside it, creating a safe little nest for the animal. He didn't know how the bird would respond, but he was determined to do everything he could to help. As the young man sat beside the box, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility he now had for this tiny life. He gently fed the bird by dipping his finger into a small drop of water, holding it carefully so the bird could drink. He watched intently as the bird struggled to focus, its eyes flickering open and closed. Each breath seemed to be a small victory. The man's heart raced as he followed the bird's slow, labored breathing. He wasn't sure if the bird would make it through the night, but he refused to give up. Over the next few hours, the young man stayed by the bird's side, never leaving it alone. Slowly, the bird's breathing began to stabilize, and its body relaxed. The young man watched as the bird's eyes slowly opened. For a moment, they locked eyes, human and animal, each silently acknowledging the bond forming between them. There was a sense of understanding there, an unspoken connection that made the young man feel as though he had been chosen to help this bird. It wasn't long before the bird started to show signs of trust. Although it still carried a hint of fear, the bird's reactions were no longer as frantic. It began to feel more comfortable around the young man, realizing he wasn't a threat. In those first few hours, the bird's will to live began to shine through, and the young man felt a sense of peace knowing he had done the right thing by stepping in. As the days passed, the bird continued to improve under the young man's care. Its wounds began to heal, and its energy slowly returned. The young man made sure to keep the bird comfortable, feeding it small portions of food and water, and providing a safe space for it to rest. But what really made a difference was the bond that started to form. The young man spent hours by the bird's side, talking to it softly, letting it get used to his presence. Eventually, the bird began to feel more at home. It became more playful, testing its wings and hopping around inside the small box. One morning, when the young man opened the box to check on the bird, it flapped its wings excitedly, ready to explore the world outside. Seeing the bird so full of life again filled the young man with pride. He knew it wasn't just about healing the bird physically. It was about giving it a chance at life, a chance to be free and healthy again. And that's exactly what the young man gave the bird: hope. As the bird's strength returned, it became clear that the young man's home was not just a place of temporary refuge. It had become the bird's home. He never intended to keep the bird confined, but the bird didn't seem to want to leave. Despite the open door and the world beyond, the bird chose to stay close, hopping around the house, flying over to the young man's shoulder, and even landing in his hand. No matter where it was playing, as soon as it saw the man, it would fly over and rest on his hand, as if saying, "Thank you." To the bird, the young man was not just a rescuer. He had become its family, its protector, its source of comfort. The young man had given the bird a second chance at life, and in return, the bird had given him a bond that transcended words. It was a friendship built on trust, compassion, and unconditional love. The young man continued to care for the bird, treating it like part of the family. He created a comfortable space for it to sleep, fed it regularly, and watched it grow stronger every day. He even built a small play area for the bird, allowing it to stretch its wings and enjoy life as a free creature. But even in the midst of all this freedom, the bird always returned to the young man, never straying too far from the one who had saved its life. This story is a reminder of the power of kindness. One simple act of compassion can change the course of a life, whether it's the life of an animal or a person. The young man didn't hesitate when the bird needed him. He saw an animal in distress and knew that helping it was the right thing to do, no matter the challenges it might bring. Just like the young man, we all have the opportunity to make a difference in the world around us. You don't need to perform grand gestures or make big plans. Sometimes the simplest acts of kindness, whether it's helping an animal in need or offering support to someone who's struggling, can have the most profound impact. If this story touched your heart, I encourage you to share it with others. Let people know that kindness is a powerful force that can change the world. And if you feel inspired by the bond between the young man and the bird, consider how you can bring more compassion into your own life. Whether it's caring for an animal, helping a friend, or just offering a smile to someone who needs it, every small act can make a world of difference. Please like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the beauty of kindness and the power of love. Let's make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.